Hello, welcome everybody. Happy last Monday of November. Hey Jen,
Hello.
we're glad to be here to talk about our latest HR topics. And Jen and I were just making a list of possible things that we could talk about. So I think one thing that we discovered, we subscribe to Fast Company, and I don't know if anybody subscribes to their blog. It's a blog that gives a bunch of articles, and we just love many of their articles in it. And there was one this weekend that was talking about the power of video and the engagement factor of using video. And we've been proponents of it. And Emily talked about it this morning on one of our leadership program meetings and encouraging people to hop on video. And it just made us think, there's a whole bunch of tools to make sure we're empowering people to use them and to make sure that they have the right setup, they feel comfortable using them. I was on another call earlier today, and they were still trying to figure out some of the technology. They're like, we'll be pros by the end of this pandemic. But it just struck us, what else should we be doing to make sure we're empowering people, with tools, increasing their visibility, just whatever that might be. So Jen, I don't know, if you had any thoughts to start on that.
Yeah, I think we know that one of the ways to increase people's visibility is just to ask them to get on video, empowering them with video cameras. That may sound fundamental or something, but we found that when the pandemic hit, a lot of people did not have video. We are doing tons of webinars and workshops and strategic planning sessions, and we're with all kinds of folks all around the country, all size firms, all type firms, all geographies. And, we can get 26 people together on the line, and some people don't have the bandwidth. Their video doesn't work well. Some people don't have video cameras that work. They don't have a video camera on their machine. They have not been permissioned to buy a video camera. And you could say, Jen and Tamera, you're being snookered. These people have video, they're lying to you or something. They don't want you to see them. They're wearing their pajamas. But that's not the case. These are people, high potentials in leadership programs who their firms are investing in them, but they're not investing in technology apparently, and they're not modeling the behavior either. There's video calls at the firm with lots of black, dark boxes. Nobody's turning their video on. So I think, that may sound like a pet peeve or something. It's not a pet peeve. If you want people to be more engaged in meetings, you need to sit around the table, figuratively speaking, which means show up. If you want them to be less engaged, you let them be on a speakerphone in the center of the table. I'm using three-dimensional, illustrations because we can relate to that. If I'm on that speakerphone in the middle of the table, I could be out getting my holiday exercise streak mile in while I'm on the phone with you guys, and you don't know what I'm doing. But if I'm serious,
That's a good idea.
The good old days, Tamera, you remember those without video. And so now, that we have video, we have to turn it on. So we're sitting together and looking at each other and reading nonverbal cues and, noticing when somebody's eyes are wandering to their second screen, they're typing their arms off, that kind of stuff. Then you're like, I don't think they're paying that much attention. So I think that the video camera is important. And when the pandemic first hit, you couldn't get them. So if you didn't have them on machines, they were super hard to come by. But now they're in pretty decent supply. They're inexpensive. I don't know. I'm using a Logitech 1080 or something. It's super high quality video for $70, maybe $65 or something it cost us. And Tamera and I do enough video that we have two of them, each. The backup camera for when the first camera dies or decides to quit working. So anyway, I just think turn cameras on. And of course, it starts top down with the leaders turning the cameras on.
And giving feedback. That was one of the things we did in this leadership program with somebody's audio. Is my audio accurate now?
It just started to get garbled. A little garbled.
Good quality. And we had to say to somebody afterwards, I don't know if you know this, but it's hard to hear you. And there's a VPN in the firm and all of those things. And he was staying after to ask some questions. And so we just shared that. And he's like, thank you for that feedback. Nobody's told me that. And we don't provide feedback. Or I can't see you, like you're like this, like I can't see you. Like we don't provide any feedback, for people. It's awkward, but they don't know. He was like, nobody said that to me. And he's like, thank you for saying that to me. We're like, of course, that's what we do. So there's that part of it as well. I know
I get laughs. I tell people like there's YouTube videos on lighting for video, and you're supposed to be front lit, not backlit. And if you're backlit, you're dark. So you look like you're in the witness protection program or something. And that's awkward. I mean, that is a weird video setup. And there might be 25 boxes. I can't say, hey, you look strange. I can't make out your face, just your shadow. That's as bad as having your camera off, or worse almost.
It's weird.
Especially if you're a mature leader, I hate to say this, and you have goofy video or sound. It's possible next gen clients and staff make a story up called "She's Not With It, Man." She's obviously techno challenged, and it diminishes you somewhat in the respect. Your cred is impacted by it. So it's important to just pay attention to these little things, because they do also impact the listening people have for you. If all they're hearing is echoes and garble and all that business, then after a little while, they're not really hearing your message. They're paying attention to all your problems.
Well, and I think that's something to pay attention to also, is how are we going to help people have visibility? And we have to privately message them afterwards or follow up and say, just, this is what the perception that's being given off, or this is how it sounded, this is how you look, but also speaking up and participating. Or if we don't see them on video on a regular basis, again, how are you, those kinds of things.
You're garbling, by the way, a little bit. I was going to say, I don't know if we have a different mic we can try, but I was on a webinar today with 50 or 60 folks, and I was trying to get them, they were in a webinar platform that did not allow unmuting. So they could not use their voice to speak to me, which is always a bummer, because I want to hear people, but in a big crowd, I get it. So they had to chat to me. And I tell you what, we had crickets in the chat for the first maybe 15 minutes. I was begging them, please talk to me so I can tailor this material to you and give me some examples and things. And so visibility and speaking up and chatting is a form of that. You don't have to just be unmuted and mic'd, especially if it's in a big group and you're like, I just don't know if I can trust that. Chatting will help. And especially if your facilitators or the leader that's running the meeting is monitoring chat, then they'll acknowledge your chat and talk with you. I mean, that's what we do. We verbally acknowledge it, or sometimes we have two facilitators and we will answer you back in the chat if we can't, do it live on the session. So I just encourage that level of participation, because it does say something about your engagement, your interest, your motivation. And people who speak up in meetings and have ideas, insights, questions, they're just perceived to be better participants. And you could say, well, I don't want to talk for the sake of talking. And, we have people who dominate verbally. Well, we're not trying to get anybody to be a verbal dominator. But if you are not verbalizing because there is a dominator, I promise other people in the room would just almost cry with joy if you spoke up now and then.
And again, I think that's part of the feedback. And this is a second mic. So I'm demonstrating what not to do.
Well, we're being straight and transparent about it. I think it's very, very in line with what we discussed.
But I think that's part of the visibility and the feedback. People don't realize it. And I think if you encourage people and you're interested, that helps.
Yeah. Well, and you could say, how is this an HR topic or something?
Yep.
The talent management is all about the development of our people. It's about the engagement, motivation of our people. It's about their participation. If our people are not participating, they're not engaged, they're not visible, they're probably either, not developing and growing, or they're like, they got a foot out the door. They're not really in it right now. And so, from that angle, I think HR should be caring about this. Plus, HR should be pushing for the right equipment for the folks, so that we could have and the right bandwidth, speeds. And if we are on a VPN and that makes things garbly or messes things up, then we need to address that too. So HR should be working with technology, the IT group, and the executive committee or management committee to get the right programs and offerings in place for people to have the right equipment. And if they don't feel good about it. They're not just attending team meetings within your firm. They're attending association meetings, or they're attending CPE, and they feel, goofy or dorky because they don't have the right stuff in that setting comparative to their peers. We've said for a long time that next gen talent, they value technology. And so it is a little bit like keeping up with the Joneses in terms of the quality of the technology, the efficiency that it provides. So you want to make sure that you're being competitive in those kind of benefits. And another thought, Tamera, I had, I was reading some stuff last night from some of our clients, and one of our clients is, many of our clients provide a stipend for home equipment. And whether that stipend is, a loan or a gift, a taxable gift or not, depends. But they have been providing funds to help their employees kind of equip their home office with the right equipment. And I do want to encourage us to do that, to think if we could do that, especially if you're having a good year or a better year than you expected. That's a wonderful place to spend some of those profits, to reinvest them, is back in equipment that will help us work at home. And some of you may be thinking, no, we don't need to do that because, the vaccine's around the corner. I don't think we're going to be really, able to be completely with each other three-dimensionally comfortably until next June, maybe. I mean, I just feel like we have to plan for the first half of the year to be blended or remote or all remote, depending on the state you're in. I also think that you're going to have a hurricane, you're going to have a snowstorm, you're going to have, some event that's going to cause you to have to stay home again. And you want your people to have the right equipment to be max productive. So just something to think about.
And that flexibility. And I think the firms that have been doing that really, the people have appreciated that. They just feel more confident with their setup. And I'm going to talk to my HR director when I'm done after this.
She's going to make sure that she's on Do Not Disturb when you do that.
So I think another topic we were thinking about is as December tomorrow, which is unbelievable. I know. And we can hear that. Whoa. And as we're looking at end of the year and PTO and vacations and holiday, and how are we managing that? I know a lot of firms are trying to figure out, if you accrue PTO, what are we doing with that? And are we carrying it over? If we don't, what's the right thing or fair thing to do? I was just with a firm today, and for the first time ever, they're going to close in between the holidays. Yay. I know, I was so proud of them. And so they've, worked that out even with their part-time employees. Like, they've just got all different scenarios. It's a smaller firm, but they've got all different scenarios. We know some large firms that have been doing it for years. And so that's one thing. But, just trying to figure out, what do we do to make sure people are re-energized, feel like they had some downtime, enjoy these holidays as strange as they are. I mean, we had a wonderful Thanksgiving, but, it was just us with my kids, and that was it. But it was wonderful. And we went for lots of hikes and walks. I saw you in social media doing the same thing. But how do we just provide that time? But how do we also figure out what's the right thing to do for the company as well? And I think that's another thing that HR is trying to figure out and navigate.
Gosh, I'll say, I know they are. And I wish it were you and I could just say, well, here's how you should do it. There's no single setup. First of all, I think that the pandemic has been a little bit of an advertisement for unlimited PTO. The clients that we had go to open PTO or unlimited PTO, where they no longer accrue and they let people take the time off that they need, as long as they're meeting their goals and as long as they communicate the time in advance and arrange for coverage. And, there are rules of engagement related to it. It's not just the wild, wild west of any old time you want for as long as you want. But those firms that went that direction, they were glad they did when we started to get into this spring and summer, and people really didn't feel like they could take time off. They didn't have any place to go. They had the extended July deadline for the people on the tax side. They didn't feel safe taking their family on trips. And so they just kind of stayed put and didn't use their time. And that didn't matter as much if we're not accruing. But for those firms that are accruing and then have different policies related to that accrual, it definitely requires some consideration. And many firms accrue, and they accrue a certain amount depending on your tenure maybe or your level. And then they have a use it or lose it policy. Maybe there's a carryover of a certain amount and the rest you lose. In this pandemic, that's going to be something that you're going to have to evaluate. And if I were sitting down to try to solve that problem, which is a little bit of a math problem, really, I think that I would try to look at PTO that had been carried over and unused from the prior year, and I might segment that out. That's not really victim of the pandemic per se, but all the time in 2020 couldn't get taken, maybe. That could be pandemic special. And we might have to have some special rules about use it and lose it. We might have to allow for more to be carried over, or especially if we don't have the cash to pay it out. But just telling employees, sorry, you're just going to lose it all. Just another casualty of the pandemic. Too bad you didn't take it off, even though we were giving you all sorts of mixed messages about how, dangerous it was and how busy we were and how badly we needed you. And we weren't taking it either, as the leaders. So we weren't exhibiting time off for you to know that we expected you to be doing it. It'd be hard to have them lose it, or at least lose all of it. So I think there's just got to be some sort of, scenarios, as you suggested, that you create and say, I'm this kind of person with this PTO. I carried max over from the prior year, plus I accrued this much and I took none. Now what? I didn't have any carryover, but I accrued it all, took none. Now what? Maybe we just need to have some different scenarios. When we help firms go to unlimited PTO, we have to deal with their accrual. They almost all have accruals, and we have to decide, what are we doing with that? Fantasy level is that we have the cash and the profitability, that we could pay it all off. But the reality is most firms can't pay it all off. So then they say you've got 12 months to get some X amount of it taken. You have, this year you have to take X amount or it's lost. They'll have some expire. They'll have kind of an expiration period on that PTO accrual. Some will pay half and expire the rest at the end of the year. There's different ways of approaching it, but you got to deal with that accrual in order to go to unlimited PTO. And I was just reading Going Concern was kind of having a field day with a big four firm that went to unlimited PTO. And I don't know what they did with their accrual, but whatever it was, it sounded like they did not pay it out, or if they did, they paid only a portion and the staff was upset about it.
And I'm not hearing you.
Oh, what? Great. I don't know why. Can you, I can hear you, Tamera. I can hear you perfectly. So I can't tell if no one else can hear me.
There we can. Yep. Got it.
Weird.
Yeah.
Super weird.
We have a gremlin today because this was our topic.
Yeah. Well, of course, we talked about audio problems. So, of course, we were going to 100% have them. Yeah, I have no idea what that was. Nothing changed in my
And Emily said she could hear you, so you're good. That's good.
Good. Okay, great. Well, anyway, I was just saying that Going Concern was, kind of chiding a big four firm that went to unlimited PTO. And I don't know what they did with their accrual, but it sounded like their employees were upset with whatever they did or didn't do. And that is just something you have to manage. And certainly any of these changes, by the way, HR folks, this, but you've got to make sure your leaders understand it. We need a frequently asked questions document. We have to arm our leaders. The entire leadership team needs to have a frequently asked questions document that says, what's changing? Why? What's staying the same? How do we handle these different use cases or scenarios? Why did we decide to do it this way? Did we consider other alternatives and why didn't we do them? We want to create that document, get our senior leaders or executive committee or management committee to read it, agree with it, and then print it in PDF, give it to all of our leaders, or if we feel like we can be transparent enough to just share it with the team. Sometimes we have change management. Our intentions are good. Our conversations were thorough. We really are trying to do what's best for everybody, but the execution goes bad in that we communicate it one-dimensionally. We don't arm our leaders with enough information. People are disgruntled or have questions, and our leaders are like, I don't know, I didn't agree with it anyway. Or, they don't support it as company men and women, and they don't feel empowered with the information to be supportive. So that's on us as change managers.
And I'd add one more step in there. validate it with your next gen committee or a focus group.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Get there.
Sure. Yeah, absolute, for sure. Or if you don't have such a thing, ask one of your, up and comers or a couple of your up and comers for some feedback on your plans, or include them in the planning discussions. That could be a little bit like inviting them to watch sausage be made, and it can be sort of creepy, but it's not. That's called leadership. That's, these are not easy decisions. If it were easy, Tamera and I would just have a template for you and say, here's what you should do. But you have a complex framework that you're dealing with, and yet, the whole point of us bringing this up, Tamera bringing this up, is because we're afraid firms are going to wait till the 11th hour, slap it together a decision on a Friday afternoon right before the holiday, and put out an email and upset everybody. And we see that happen all the time. My God, we see it happen on a Friday before the holiday to announce your PTO carryover decision or something. Do not do that. We beg you. Let's figure this out quickly and get to something that we can communicate while we're still around to triage questions and issues. And don't let our people go off on the holiday kind of feeling like Ebenezer Scrooge visited, from the firm.
Right.
Even if we have takeaways, we have to manage them and get that out earlier.
And give them an opportunity to ask questions.
For sure.
Well, I think we're at time. This is awesome. Such a good topic. And we'll see everybody next week. Have a great, productive week. Happy end of November, 1st of December. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah, and happy holidays. We're in it. It's official.
We are.
We need to bring as much cheer and joy as we can. So let's try to keep that going while we're dealing with the normal day-to-day, run the business, and the abnormal, live in the pandemic. Exactly. Take care, everybody.
Thanks. Bye-bye.